infinity and beyond!
Welcome back, Screen Ranters. Disney is a pretty big deal. After all, one day they could be our overlords. With their influence on our childhood memories, there's no surprise that fans have been creating theories on their films for years. Some of those theories are borderline insane. We are genuinely worried about the people that come up with them, but then again, they make some great points. Today, we're going to examine some of the best and craziest Disney fan theories on the interweb, so let's get started.
Okay, let's do this.
Disney may have a magic crystal ball. 10 years ago, they predicted the current state in our world in Tangled. The eerie connection has spread across social media as fans revisit classic Disney films. In Tangled, Rapunzel is locked up and isolated in a castle by Mother Gothel. Rapunzel is not allowed to leave the castle at all. Sound familiar? Many have likened this to the self-isolated quarantine in place across countries around the world. But that's just a coincidence, we hear you think? Well, it gets weirder. The castle is based in the kingdom island of Corona. However, after Rapunzel has been in isolation, her world gets a lot brighter, as Flynn Rider rocks up to help her in the next stage of her life. Rider could represent the relief that we could all experience once quarantine has been lifted. It's spooky how similar the film is to life right now. One of the big points in 2001's Monsters, Inc. is the fact that the monsters can teleport to various houses through special doors. By accident, Boo, the human child, saw this in action. So in years later, Boo may have found a way to manipulate the monster's technology for her own doing. She's then able to port about. Later, she figures out how to time travel. If you can let your suspension of disbelief go for a secret collection of monsters that harvest human screams then laughter, a time-traveling Boo might not be too beyond the realms of Disney Pixar. But if we jump to Brave, we meet the witch. She has the uncanny ability to teleport with the use of doors too. Yup, the witch is Boo. If we take a gander around the witch's residence, there's a little Easter egg that gives us some evidence. We can see a wood carving of Sully, or Kitty if we use Boo's nickname for the fluffy creature. Boo must have found a way to travel far back into the past, as Sully isn't around for centuries yet, and for some reason, she's unable to travel back. Perhaps her time travel technology is damaged beyond repair? No matter how, she's now stuck in the land of Brave. During 1989's The Little Mermaid, we never got to meet Ariel's mom, Queen Athena. In a later direct-to-video prequel film during 2008 called The Little Mermaid: Ariel's Beginning, we find out what happened to Athena. It turns out she was slain by a group of pirates that hit her with their boat. As a result, Ariel's dad, King Triton, hated humanity. It's not exactly a cheery backstory. However, this film might not be the first time we see Athena. We might have seen her in 1953's Peter Pan. There, we see Pan and Wendy meeting a group of mermaids. Two of the mermaids are redheads, but the one with their hair down looks rather similar to Ariel. This theory believes that this redhead is the future Queen Athena. The group of mermaids then splash Wendy and later admit to trying to drown Wendy due to her gender. Perhaps the people of Atlantica didn't know that their beloved queen was actually a terrible person. Anyway, the theory also states that the pirates that took out Athena may have been working for Captain Hook, or Hook himself. After all, the mermaids are very scared of Hook during their Pan scene. Perhaps it's a little bit of foreshadowing for Disney. Foreshadowing that was 30 years in the making. This is probably one of the most well-known theories. The Aladdin idea also makes tons of sense. Quickly write which theory this is all about in the comments, huh? All of those that comment gets a cookie from their own homes. This theory is all about Aladdin not being set in the past. It's really a post-apocalyptic future. First evidence is when the genie makes a judgment on Aladdin's clothes. He states it's much to 3rd century. Later, he makes a reference that he's been in the lamp for 10,000 years.
10,000 years will give you such a crick in the neck.
So, if the genie was around during the 3rd century, that would mean the present day is at least the year 10,300. On top of that, the genie makes so many references to pop culture at the time of the film's release in 1992. Even the magical items, like the sentient flying carpet, could be advanced technology. The carpet could have been hidden by someone in order to protect it from the event that turned the world into a Mad Max landscape. Even Iago being able to talk might be the result of mutation, or even technology that somehow allows animals to talk. It all connects. Or maybe the genie perceives time completely different to everyone since he's a magical entity. Yeah, no, Mad Max. It seems we may have a theme going on. Every other entry is the dark and creepy one. Was this intentional? Oh yeah, you betcha. Now, for our next trip down Sorrow Lane. This theory involves Finding Nemo, the cute, feel-good story about a father locating his lost fish child. Well, what if we told you that Nemo isn't lost because he perished long ago? We find out in the film that Nemo's egg siblings and his mother, Coral, were all destroyed from an attack by barracudas. Well, what if Nemo never made it either? Instead, Marlin is imagining that one of his offspring survived the savage attack. Firstly, the word Nemo is translated as nothing in Latin. Either Marlin passively aggressively dislikes his son, or it's because it's literal. Nemo doesn't exist. To go further, the film can be split into the 5 stages of grief. Denial, Marlin doesn't want Nemo to go to school. Anger, screaming at Nemo when he swims too far. Bargaining, Marlin travels across the ocean to look for Nemo. Despair, witnessing Nemo being flushed down the drain. Acceptance, Marlin finally lets go of his past that haunts him. Yep, it's bleak, but it does give this film about a lost fish a lot more depth as a result. Well, going from that somber story to something a little more cheerful, in 2015's Inside Out, we meet Bing Bong. He's the imaginary friend of Riley's childhood. We first meet him as he's stealing memories from Riley for some reason. It's weird and a little unsettling moment. It's also never addressed, so we have no idea what the creature was doing with the memories. Comment below on your theories. Anyway, in order to save Riley, Bing Bong sacrifices himself by jumping off the wagon so Joy can get back to headquarters. Then he slowly fades away, thus implying that Bing Bong bit the big bullet. But we have some good news. Bing Bong, the real Bing Bong, might be alive and well, as this creature shares a lot of similarities to the beasts in Monsters, Inc., as he too is very animal-like in his appearance with over-the-top coloring. Bing Bong may have visited Riley as she was a child in order to harvest her laughs. With the positive association, Riley created a goofy memory of the monster. So, that's what we see perish in the memory dump pit. A memory, not the actual Bing Bong. He might still be out there, harvesting all the laughter to his heart's content. Now back to a bittersweet entry. You're welcome. 2009's Up was a heart-wrenching film, but it might get a little more wrenching. This theory goes with the idea that once Carl loses his court case, his home, and is meant to go to a retirement home, he passes away in his sleep that very night. The rest of the film is Carl on his way into the afterlife. After all, the amount of balloons and helium required to lift a house is far more than Carl would have left over from his selling days. The rising up of the house represents when a soul moves into the spiritual world. With the afterlife in mind, Russell isn't a plucky kid. He's actually a guardian angel to help take Carl into pastures new. Russell's badges are tasks that the angels need to meet in order to gain his wings. So the assisting the elderly badge is more spiritual than simply mowing their grass. This theory also explores how Kevin the bird represents a muse or higher calling, as well as how Doug the dog represents a transition. Say, the one Carl is taking at that moment. Months, on the other hand, is a representation of Lucifer or evil intentions. Up Now sounds more like a John Constantine comic than a Disney flick. Toy Story is a pretty horrifying tale when you think about it. The toys we've thrown downstairs, forced to battle, or leave to collect dust on a shelf may actually be sentient through all of this. After this franchise and 1998's Small Soldiers film, we can't trust our plastic chums anymore. Anywho, this theory is all about Jessie, the yodeling cowgirl. Yep, that's her full name. In Toy Story 2, we discover that Jessie was abandoned by Emily as she becomes a teenager. Since then, Jessie struggled to trust anyone, let alone human kids. Eventually, she changes her mind after a lot of hijinks. So far, the identity of Emily is unknown. We've only seen brief flashbacks from Jessie's perspective. However, one theory points to Andy's mother being the girl that threw away Jessie. In the first film, we see Andy playing while wearing a human-sized version of Jessie's hat, not Woody's. As a result, it makes sense that either Andy found the hat in his mom's items, or she gave it to her son. After all, we still don't know Andy's mom's first name. We only know her as Mrs. Davis. Maybe it's Emily. Once Jessie finds that her previous owner was related to the Emily that haunts her, there will be a lot of problems. Yay, a comedic moment that may actually be horrifying. That's what makes a great theory. In The Emperor's New Groove, Kuzco gets turned into a llama by mistake due to being, well, a terrible leader. Shortly after, the llama-fied Kuzco walks through a creepy jungle, even though Pacha tries to tell him it's a bad idea. But Kuzco does what Kuzco does. During that not-so-fun jungle experience, we see a fly get caught in a spider's web. It pleads for help before it gets eaten. Funny, right? Well, it won't be in a moment. We find out that in the world of the Kuzconian Empire, that animals that can speak were once human. They have been turned into animals by some crazy means. Kuzco can't understand other animals when he's interacting with them. Only through their gestures does he get an idea of their meaning. So the only explanation is that the fly was a human that ended up in a similar situation to Kuzco. Just they ended up becoming a snack for a big, scary spider. While Kuzco learns to be a decent person, Kuzco even looks disturbed by the fly-eating incident. Perhaps he knew that he and the fly were sharing a similar path. So watching a person being eaten will definitely be a tad upsetting. We finish off with one Frozen theory in a film littered with fan theories. For more on those, watch our video on the best Frozen fan theories here. That's a great plug. So this theory involves how other Disney characters are related to Anna and Elsa. As we know, the king and queen perish as they travel the seas to a wedding, which leaves Elsa the next in line for the throne. During the coronation, we see an Easter egg in the form of Rapunzel and Flynn Rider / Eugene Fitzherbert in attendance. This theory believes that Rapunzel is a cousin to Anna and Elsa. It was her and Flynn's wedding that Agnar and Iduna were going to on that fateful night. As Rapunzel and Flynn feel responsible, they turn up in Arendelle to support Elsa, their family. But to go further, Agnar and Iduna didn't go down with the ship. Instead, they arrived on the island. Iduna discovers she's pregnant and gives birth to the man later known as Tarzan, making Tarzan the brother of Elsa and Anna. Did we blow your mind? The whole Disney animated universe could all be connected in some fashion or another, showing that way before the MCU, the biggest extended universe may have been going on subtly for decades. Everyone has fond memories of the Snow White film, the dwarves that are defined by a singular emotion, the creepy woman turning up with an apple and being obsessed with feeding it to Snow White, which she eats with little prompting, as well as the prince turning up to Snow White's funeral and making out with her with the no one in attendance, viewing this as concerning behavior. Wow, anywho, this theory is about when the prince plants the kiss on Snow White. The theory is that this isn't actually the prince, but is the literal manifestation of the Grim Reaper. The Reaper is commonly known for wearing a black cloak or being a sassy British guy in Supernatural.
Shut up, Dean.
Back to Disney's version, the Reaper is there to help Snow White into the afterlife after she kicked the bucket from consuming the poisoned apple. He provides Snow White with the kiss of permanent napping. As soon as Snow White wakes from her nap, she begins to say goodbye to the dwarves. It's as though she'll never see them again, which is odd since they've all become her friends. Then, the Grim Reaper, a horse, and Snow White walk towards a dreamy castle in the clouds, hinting that it's actually heaven they're traversing towards. Nice, creepy theory to a morally iffy film.
Mark my words, there's trouble a brewing.
Well, after reading all these fan theories, we have no idea what to think. So many of them seem like they could be true. Which one is the most plausible? If you thought this video was a decent way to spend 10-something minutes, then give us a like and share it on social media. It really helps us out. If you haven't already, subscribe and click that little bell. Then you'll be given a heads up whenever we post new content. Finally, thanks for joining us today. Later, Disney-ator.